Hello, and welcome to our second Seabird chat. Today we have people joining from all over the place. I'm sitting in Scotland, and it's late afternoon, and basically the rest will be joining me from the US. I think I'll just get straight to introducing our or my co-hosts, we could call them, Corey Hatterbuck and Laura Bliss, and same as usual. We welcome any questions that you might have. I'll try and stay on top of that. And Corey, can you take it from here?
Sure. So thanks, Shu. My name is Corey Clatterbuck, as Shu said, and I am currently a PhD candidate at San Diego State University, and it's also a joint program with the University of California, Davis. And I've hosted Seabird Chat before. This is my second time, so welcome everyone to Seabird Chat. Laura, could you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yes, my name's Laura Bliss. I'm in Austin, Texas at the moment. I'm starting a PhD at U Manitoba under Gail Davern in the fall, and I currently work as a contractor under a Cassin's Auklet project, focusing on changes in distribution from the blob.
Awesome, thank you. So I'll go ahead and get started with our agenda today. And then as I'm going through the agenda, I'll introduce our other people that will be talking on Seabird Chat, a chat with the chair today. And so first to go, we will talk with the chair of the World Seabird Union, which is fantastic, Pat Jodice. Pat, can you tell us a little bit about yourself real quick?
Yep. Hi, so I'm sitting here in Clemson, South Carolina. I'm at Clemson University. I'm actually a federal employee with the US government. So I work for the South Carolina Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit. And I've been the chair of the World Seabird Union since 2015 and will be until 2020. It's a 5-year term. So I look forward to talking with you today about the union, kind of how it got started, where we hope to go in the future, and some of the activities we're engaged in.
Cool, thanks, Pat. And then secondly, we will also record or play a pre-recorded video from Grant Humphreys, who has been the essential head of communications for the World Seabird Union for pretty much as long as the World Seabird Union has existed. And he's going to talk a little bit about where the World Seabird Union is at right now in terms of communications. And then last, we will talk with Max Sapansky about the World Seabird Twitter conference that was just a few weeks ago in April. Max, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Max Sapansky. I'm a master's student at San Francisco State, and I work for the U.S. Geological Survey as well, studying the spatial distribution of seabirds in the Pacific. So for my thesis, I'm looking at red-footed boobies in Hawaii, because who doesn't like to go to the tropics?
Yeah, we are all jealous of that, for sure. All right, so I'll go ahead and lead off with our conversation with Pat. First of all, thanks, Pat, for joining us. We're really excited to have the chair of World Seabird Union on Seabird Chat. This is an incredible opportunity for us, so thank you. First, if you just want to go into, we'll really talk a little bit about the goals of World Seabird Union, the history of World Seabird Union, why does it exist, and what it will be like going forward.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to join anytime, whether it's just as a watcher or as part of the conversation. So the World Seabird Union started back in 2010. That was our first World Seabird Conference, which was held in Victoria, and the planning for that started a year or two before that. I was actually approached by David Irons and Dan Roby in a bar in Hokkaido, Japan, about the prospect of coming on board to help organize. That's where things happen at bars, as you all know. So we were at a Pacific Seabird Group meeting in Hokkaido. It was a great meeting, and over the few years leading up to that, we had been talking about a need for a more globally based organization. The Pacific Seabird Group is a very large seabird group, one of the largest seabird groups that we've got in the world. And although the name suggests, was appropriately that they're focused on the Pacific, a lot of folks do go from other parts of the world as well. But we saw a need for a global organization. And David Irons and Dan Roby and John Croxall really sort of drove that idea for a while. And so I came on board originally to be the science chair, along with Pablo Yorio and Norm Ratcliffe of the first World Seabird Conference, again, which was held up in Victoria. So I got engaged with the organization through that. And then following at the end of the first World Seabird Conference, we actually kind of held a closing plenary to discuss the need for or interest in forming a World Seabird body. And we had over 800 people at that first meeting. That plenary was really well attended, and there was in general an agreement that a world body would be a really helpful tool to have, especially for the taxa that we work with, which are so broadly distributed, range so widely, and encounter problems and challenges over such a wide geographic range. And so that was sort of the underpinning of it. One of the initial ideas that came out of the first World Seabird Conference were to create these global databases. And so if you look back on some of the web pages, you'll still see these links to global databases, Colony Register, the @Sea Seabird database, and those kinds of things. So those were some of the big initial pushes of the World Seabird Union. And we really spent from 2010 to 2015 just becoming an organization. You can imagine all the things that come along with that: creating bylaws, getting established so that you can actually hold money and spend money and be accountable for the money that you spend, figuring out how the organization should be structured. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of the union, and a lot of people may not realize this. If I ask any of you if you're members of the union, you might not know what your answer should be. You'd be like, well, yeah, but I don't pay dues, and I don't get a newsletter, so I guess I'm a member. And the real answer is the union is it's sort of a meta society. So most societies are comprised of individual people. So I'm a member of the Pacific Seabird Group. I'm a member of the Waterbird Society. But the World Seabird Union is a meta society, and it's a society of other organizations. So we are comprised of about 20 other avian-based, mostly seabird-based, but some non-seabird-focused organizations, such as the Pacific Seabird Group, the Seabird Group in the UK, the South African Seabird Group, the Australasian Seabird Group, and then some broader organizations like BirdLife International and the American Bird Conservancy. And the list goes on, and we have that list on our webpage. Some of those groups are quite large, like the Pacific Seabird Group, in and of themselves, a large, long-standing organization that's been around for a long time. Some are really small and might only have, 10 or 15 or 20 members. But they're all member societies, and that's sort of the basic structure for the union and how we have membership. And then, then we have a governance structure as well, which I can talk about if people are interested, with the board of directors, which are comprised of regional representatives. So there's one from North America, one from South America, et cetera. So anyway, we spent most of 2010 to 2015 figuring that out, and then also getting the second World Seabird Conference up and running in South Africa. And then the plan is from as I sort of said when I took over in 2015, we spent the first 5 years kind of creating ourselves, and now we need to learn how to be an organization and to grow and evolve and figure out what it is that we need to be doing next. And I'll wrap up here in a couple seconds so you can redirect me. But what we're doing now, I think, is actually one of the biggest features of the union moving forward. Again, those first 5 years were spent on organization and working on these global databases. And I think these next 5 years, it's becoming clear to me from a bottom-up perspective, not from a top-down perspective, but from a bottom-up perspective, that where we're heading is to a 5-year period of enhanced communication. Because we didn't have that the first 5 years, and now we do. Seabird Chats, the Twitter conferences, which are a huge success, just the Twitter feed in general on a daily basis, and all the information that's generating. So I'm seeing this as a really big focus for us over the next few years. So let me stop rambling for a couple seconds, and you can redirect and ask some follow-ups maybe.
Well, no, I think you touched on a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about. The communication parts, the all the different societies that are a part of, or members that are a part of multiple other societies as well. And you talked a little bit about global databases that are available. So kind of leading off of that and kind of combining two of those ideas, what do you think are there any planned initiatives to encourage these cross-region collaborations or cross organization collaboration, something where we could have more international collaboration through World Seabird Union?
Yeah, so that hasn't really happened yet, I think. And so one of the, I may not answer the question the way you want me to. So again, feel free to redirect. I'm not trying to pivot in a political sense. But when I think about initiatives for the union and things that we need to be doing, I tend to take, since we're all ecologists, I tend to catch in an ecological thought of things happen either from the top down or from the bottom up. And while there are opportunities for top-down initiatives, and the global databases were certainly one of those for those first 5 years, and will be moving forward. We still have some work to do with those. What I'm really interested, I think, right now is fostering these bottom-up initiatives, and I see these things that sort of grow organically from the individuals who are part of societies, and I see the communication effort as part of that. I see focusing on early career scientists as part of that, because that's what I hear from the people I speak to, whether it's through Twitter or emails or when we are at conferences. That's what people seem to be really interested in. And so directed efforts at things like international collaborations or cross-society collaborations, I'm happy for the organization to consider those things. But I'm not sure that we want to drive those from the top down all the time. There are, and we do get presented with ideas. So just as an example, and this is a little bit off from what you suggested, but one of the ideas that came most recently, which I've been sitting on because we've been busy with figuring out where the next World Seabird Conference will be, which I know is an up-and-coming question, but we've been, somebody's come to us with an idea of, well, what about special working groups? So someone came and posed an idea of a marine plastics, marine pollution working group. So I said, okay, well, how can the union benefit you? Why do you need us? Why do you need to be kind of housed under our umbrella? And then what can we do for you? I think it needs to go both ways. What does the union get out of it? And then what does that group get out of it? Do you see this as a permanent body? No, it should be short term, okay. And unfortunately, we're a little behind on sort of moving forward with that. But those are the ideas that I get kind of excited about, are the ones that individuals bring forward or small groups bring forward and say, hey, here's something that we'd like to try and do. And then I think, so I see us sort of focusing on a lot of those types of things over the next year. And then I think in 2018 and 19 and 20, as the board gets a little bit more used to working together, I see an opportunity for some more top-down type initiatives. And we also have, and I'll just put it out there because I think this is really important. I chaired the Pacific Seabird Group right before I chaired the World Seabird Union. I sat on the board of directors for the Waterbird Society, and I've sat on a couple other boards of directors for NGOs. And as horrendous as it sounds, governance is a really important part of all of this. And some people get really scared off by the concept of governance and bylaws and all those other things, and I don't like it by any means, but it is really important. It's important for society to have an explicit and strong governance structure so that it's clear how they work and it's transparent. And we've done a good job building that so far, but we need to do a better job over the next few years enhancing that and making it a little bit more transparent. So we've got a little bit of work to do on the governance side of things as well.
Sure. So regarding, this bottom-up structure that you think the World Seabird Union is adopting, and I think that's incredible, and it definitely leaves room for, early career scientists to start making a mark within their careers. How should they go about, contacting the union or getting their research out so that the union knows about it, or, just letting the union know that they're interested in working with the union?
Yeah, and that was so, when I talked to you guys about even appearing today, one of the things that I wanted to do was make a pitch to anybody who's listening, and I'll do this on Twitter as a follow-up. There's two ways. I think there's a couple different ways that folks can become engaged and work with the union. I mean, I'm more than happy to field questions and emails from people directly and sort of redirect them to who I think they need to talk to. So the marine plastics idea came to me directly, and that was fine. Again, there are regional representatives, and some of you might know who those folks are, within your region. So here in North America, Kim Nelson is the regional rep, and Ken Morgan is the alternate. In South America, Pablo Yorio is the regional rep. It's in Europe, Liz Humphreys is the regional rep. So a lot of folks know these people, and so that's another way, to get in touch with folks within your own time zone, which sometimes is a little bit easier, and talk to people that way. And then through the member societies as well. If you're part of a member society and you see an opportunity for your member society to do something specific, I think that's another way to bring that forward. And each member society has a representative as well, and all that is on the webpage. Probably, hopefully up to date, possibly not. If not, no, that's on me, not on Grant or anybody else. So, but we've been trying to get those updated. So,
well, I think the website has certainly improved over years as well. So, thanks to you both for doing that.
Yeah.
You had discussed earlier about early career scientists. How do you see World Seabird Union supporting early career scientists, not just with job advertisements and a discussion forum that we've currently had on the website for a few years now, but possibly some sort of mentoring scheme or other ideas that you have?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think that the early career scientist question is a really interesting one across a lot of organizations, not just ours. So when you go, and again, we only meet every 5 years. So some of you may not have been at a World Seabird Union meeting yet, but if you go to the Pacific Seabird Group, if you go to the Waterbird Society meeting, if you go to I haven't been to the UK meetings, but there's a lot of early career scientists there. And you see them for a couple of years, and then you don't see them again. We have a lot of people, there's not a lot of, I have to be careful how I say this, I don't want to scare people away, but there's not a lot of seabird jobs out there. I feel really fortunate to still be in the seabird world doing research. And so we do a lot of work with these early career scientists. I think we work with them, and we get them to conferences, we support them with travel awards, we encourage them through all the different conferences that we have, whether they're Twitter conferences or in-person conferences. And then a lot of those folks end up getting jobs with different taxa, and they can't, it's hard for them to stay involved in the World Seabird Union. So this is one of the questions that I think comes up a lot. My postdoc, Juliet Lamb, is part of Project Pelican. She's on the board of directors for the Waterbird Society, and this is something that, she's been telling me they've been thinking about a lot as well, is, how do you foster engagement for folks like a lot of you who are still graduate students? You don't know what work you're going to get. You don't know what tax you're going to be working on. And how do we keep you engaged moving forward? And if I had an answer to that, that'd be great. I know
that we would have to have the conversation, right?
I know. And so I think the fact that people are beginning to think about it is actually a huge step, because I think for many years they really didn't. So I think that the things that we can do, while people, because most of the early career scientists we're dealing with, I think fall into sort of two categories. It's graduate students who have no idea where they're going to be in 5 years, and we've all been there. And then it's people who have landed a job and maybe are still doing seabird work, and they're trying to figure out how to grow their career and stay engaged and find money and collaborate with people in different places. And so I think we sort of have two tracks we need to take with that. Is how do we continue to work with students to mentor them, so that they're able to go after the jobs that are out there, but also help them to understand that the skills that they're developing are not just seabird-based skills, that they may go off and work on waterfowl or cranes or shorebirds, God forbid, and and still be incredibly successful. And if the union can help them do that, then I think we've done our jobs. We're not going to place everybody in a seabird job. There just aren't enough. And so I think we need to be focused on making sure that the skills that we're helping people develop through the union are really skills that they can apply in whatever kind of a job they get. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to be thinking about over the next few years. So I think things like Meet the Masters, I've actually talked to a few people about ideas like, okay, if you've got Meet the Masters, what's the other end of the spectrum? Meet the newbies, meet the juniors, whatever you want to call it. But some opportunity to do that as well, where younger scientists have the opportunity to sort of be in the spotlight as opposed to just, older scientists like myself. So I think there are some things that we can foster to do that. And my bet is the best ideas for how to do that are not going to come from the board because we're not junior scientists. They're going to come from, you know, folks like yourselves. I also think the other thing we need to do, and then again, I'll stop rambling, is bring the early career scientists in at the committee level as we're beginning to plan the third World Seabird Conference. I think that's a really big step. So they may not be ready to be chairs of committees, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot. And filling in, it's, you know, it's sitting on those committees is a really good way to start to learn about structure, how the organization works, and also to figure out what you're good at. Because I did that. I mean, I sat on a committee early on and realized that it was a, you know, a terrible choice of a committee for me, and I needed to go do something else. So, so I think, sorry, that's my phone ringing. So, so anyway, I think that there's just a couple ideas that I have about that.
Yeah, I think that's that sounds like a great opportunity to me. I think we have time for one more question. Max, if you want to, I think you had something that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, Pat, in keeping with this theme, I think you're bringing up a really important point that there are fewer seabird research jobs than there are aspiring seabird researchers, but there are so many related things, whether it's working with seabirds in a slightly different way. Like I know that the Farallones recently posted a job listing for a seabird outreach specialist, which is more of like a communications position. And then there's also, you mentioned other taxa, but there's other ways of approaching this, like the Society for Conservation GIS meeting is going to be in Monterey in July, and that's not seabird specific, but it is conservation and wildlife. So do you think there's an opportunity for the World Seabird Union to partner with other organizations or try to highlight not only seabird research positions, but other types of positions that would be attractive to aspiring seabirders?
Yeah, you know, I think that's a really good question, Max, and a good idea. And it's something we haven't really talked about explicitly within the union. So, you know, years ago, I talked to some colleagues in the Pacific Seabird group about trying to like hold a joint meeting with the ocean folks. You know, we're like, geez, you know, we have all these talks that we do. We're talking about oceanography all the time. It would be great to meet with the ocean people. Or the ocean fisheries people, for example. And so, you know, it never happened, but I think the idea was one that was interesting. When you do see joint meetings, they tend to be other avian groups, right? So like, you know, every once in a while, the Waterbird Society will meet with the Pacific Seabird group. And you're like, okay, that's just a lot of the same people getting in one place. The diversity is now we have people talking about wading birds. So, you know, I think it would be an interesting thing to do. And, you know, and one way to do that, and I hesitate to say this out loud because it literally just crossed my mind, and that usually is not a good thing. But so we only meet every 5 years, so that's going to be a challenge. But I mean, what if we had a Twitter conference that somehow brought those organizations together? You know, if we held a joint Twitter conference between, say, you know, the marine fisheries people and the World Seabird Union, or some of the ocean sciences people in the World Seabird Union, and that might be one way to sort of test the waters for that kind of a cross-pollination to see how that might fly, as I make more work for other people. So I think Max, your question is really a good one, and one we need to give some thought to.
We do have a Twitter question from Stephanie Avery Gome. How is the WSU funded? Through member organization fees, through fundraising, endowments? Are there opportunities to donate?
Opportunities to donate. We need to work on that. We probably need a donate button if we don't have one. So Stephanie was the person who brought forward the idea about the special interest working groups. She's probably wondering what's going on with that, and everything's been on hold while we've been dealing with the World Seabird Conference site selection. So Stephanie, don't worry about it. We'll get back to it. So how is it funded? Well, this is an important issue. You know, we talked about governance, and a big part of governance is money. It is not funded through membership dues. We have no membership dues. Nobody pays to be a member of the society. And whether we rethink that or not in the future, who knows? So it's been funded entirely out of money that we've raised starting with the first World Seabird Conference. So when we put that conference on, we wrote a bunch of grants. We're very fortunate, raised money doing so, held the conference. We don't like to use the word profit when we talk about the conference because it sounds like we're trying to make money, and we're not. You know, if at the end of the day we break even, you know, we're not hoping for that, but clearly, you know, that's the first step, is we want to break even if we hold the conference. If there's money left over, that goes to seed the next World Seabird Conference, and it also goes to pay for some of the activities. So as an example, we just voted to allot some funds to a private company to help improve seabirds.net and update it. That was, I think, $15,000. That came out of money that's been generated from the first World Seabird Conference and the second World Seabird Conference that we've held on to and moved forward. So that's the only way we've gotten money, has been through writing grants to support the conference, and then through monies that are remaining as like in a revenue account after the conference is over. And the other part to this that's important that I want to mention is that after the first and the second World Seabird Conference, we looked at that pot of money that we had, and we allocated a certain amount of that to the host organization. So when a World Seabird Conference happens, the way we've built it is that there's a local city, a local host, but also a host organization. Pacific Seabird Group was the first one. South African Seabird Group was the second one. We'll talk about the third one momentarily. So they got a check when everything was done. Said, okay, you guys took a risk, you did a lot of work, and here's some money into your accounts to help your organization grow. We think that's a really important part of what we do as a body is, again, we're only meeting every 5 years, so this isn't happening a lot, but we're taking some of the funds that are generated by holding a global conference and giving it to a local organization to help their conference remain stable and grow as well. So we might need to think about getting a donate button though, Stephanie. That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I love that idea too. Okay, well, Pat, we're gonna hold on to that question about the World Seabird Conference, the third one, until the end of the chat. So thank you very much. I actually have a lot more questions that I'd love to ask you later on if we have the opportunity to have you on Seabird Chat again. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. So throw it to Grant Humphreys, who is not on the call, but we're going to play a video from Grant, who has been the communications chair for the World Seabird Union for quite some time. And he's going to review some of the things that he's done as part of communications chair. And he will also talk about, we may also talk about the new upcoming communications chair for World Seabird Union as well. So Shu, do you have that video ready?
I do. Please wave if audio is not coming through or something, but I'll start playing it now. That's not working? No sound?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no sound with Grant.
Bummer.
Although he definitely looks like he knows what he's talking about.
So, hang on. I have a good idea.
That map looks impressive, though.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grant Humphrey. I am the communications chair for .net. Some of you have seen me poking around this channel, tweet, on Facebook, and the like. We're going to be here first today, like that. We'll pass it on my behalf. First, exciting announcement.
Oh, well, yeah, it seems like perhaps the sound isn't coming through well.
Yeah, it's really difficult to hear.
Well, that's a bummer. But after Seabird Chat, we can, because the video is on YouTube, unfortunately Grant couldn't join us, but we can hear some updates from Grant. Shu, do you want to go over any of the highlights of that? Or do you want to save that just for the video?
So Grant basically explains his role as chair for the World Seabird Union, and he's had various roles. The main platform for the World Seabird Union to serve the seabird community, I think, has been seabirds.net. So yeah, please go and check out that video that he's posted, and he also told us about the past Twitter conferences who have grown steadily, and that's again something Max will touch upon. And then there's the let me see. Yeah, no, I will just have to link to his chat, and we will. Yeah.
Sounds good. So yeah, we encourage all of you guys to watch Grant's video because he's got some really good information about what he's done as part of communications chair and how seabirds.net has changed, and essentially how seabirds and seabirders in general, especially through Twitter, have really elevated the research that we do to the scientific community and to the public in general. So I appreciate Grant for all of his work that he's been doing for the past few years.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
go ahead.
Real quick if you could. So yeah, you know, as the chair, and I can tell you the board as well, have been, you know, we're really grateful for all the work Grant has done. He's been engaged since the very beginning, you know, helped getting seabirds.net built, and all the parts that go along with that. You know, he was very active at the actual conferences in South Africa, helping run local communications there as well. It's been a big job, and honestly, when we have our, you know, every other month conference calls, his communication section takes up as much time almost as anything else does, because of the amount of activity that he's been sort of shepherding along. So he's been incredibly valuable to the growth of the union to date, and he deserves a tremendous amount of thanks for all of his efforts, and, you know, as everyone on the union does, working for free when he's got other things he can be doing too. So so we appreciate Grant, and I know he'll be active in the union moving forward as well.
Awesome, thanks, Pat. So now we're going to move on, and Laura, my co-host, is going to have a little conversation with Max Sapansky, who was one of the co-chairs of the 3rd World Seabird Twitter Conference. Laura.
Thanks, Corey. Okay, so the World Seabird Twitter Conference just wrapped up a few weeks ago. So we're just going to do a little wrap-up information from Max. Max, can you give us some of the metrics about how many people participated, what kind of impact it had?
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. But first, let me just quickly thank the committee. We had about a dozen folks working on this who were amazing, 3 of whom are here sitting on this call. And I really want to thank my co-chair, Saskia Wisniewski, who not only was a co-chair, but was finishing her PhD and starting a new job at the same time, which was a remarkable effort on her part. So yeah, some quick metrics. Pardon me. In total, we had 130 presenters, which was almost double from last year. Our presentations came from 57 different countries, and I was really excited to see that in addition to the usual suspects like the US, the UK, other parts of Europe, Australia, and New Zealand, we also had, I believe, 8 presentations from Peru. On the Guano Islands, we had a lot of presentations from, we had a couple from Southeast Asia, from Bangladesh. So that seeing the growth of the Twitter conference to highlight other parts of the world that don't get the same amount of attention and resources was really exciting to see. And so the total participation in the conference was more than 1,500 people and over 6,000 tweets. And Pat mentioned that the first World Seabird Conference had 800 attendees. That's one of the nice things about Twitter. We were able to have twice that many, and it didn't cost anybody anything. So it was a really great experience to run this and to help so many people get in touch with each other and learn about ongoing research and everything that doesn't necessarily make it into a paper, but is still really important part of seabird research.
Yeah, the sessions that I chaired, there were a lot of people asking questions, a lot of dialogue started, some connections made, maybe some personal or research connections that may lead to something in the future. So I think that was really, really cool to see. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization process?
The organization process, yeah, that's an ongoing, evolving process. A lot of it is still by
Uh-oh. Did we lose Max?
Okay, we're waiting for Max.
Sorry
now
about
there's
that.
2 Maxes. There we go.
Chrome crashed on me there for a second. The organization it's an ongoing process. A lot of it's still by the seat of our pants, but one of the things we're doing to help that in the future is we're going to mimic the Pacific Seabird Group leadership structure, and we're going to try to have, at any given time, a past chair, a current chair, and a future chair. And that way we'll have 3 heads of the dragon, if anyone is a Song of Ice and Fire fan, and we'll be able to keep it going in the future. One of the things about a Twitter conference is that no 2 people are ever in the same place at the same time on the committee. So we're working on better communication strategies, not just with each other, but with the attendees.
Great. And what kind of response or feedback did you get from participants or anyone else who participated in any way?
Yeah, we're still sifting through all the feedback. I want to say thank you to everyone who filled out that Google form. So unfortunately, I can't say too much, but we will follow up with some more details about the feedback we got from folks and how we plan to incorporate that in the future.
Cool. So do you want to go ahead and announce any winners?
Yes. So I'll share this on Twitter in a moment. We've got a little infographic, but we have 4 prize winners that we would like to announce from the World Seabird Twitter conference. The first is our grand prize winner, Liz Morgan, who gave a presentation on Farne Island shags and the spatial segregation in their habitat use. Liz is going to be the winner of a cash prize from the World Seabird Union. Our runner-up is Rachel Orban up at Oregon State, who gave a presentation on her residence in space and time algorithm, which is a quick and easy way of doing some behavioral classification on GPS tracks. And she's going to win a signed copy of The Biology of Marine Birds, signed by the author, Dr. Schreiber. And then we have 2 other prizes. One is a special achievement in science communication, which goes to Project Pelican. I know Pat's going to be happy about that. If you didn't see the Project Pelican presentation, do yourself a favor, go check it out right now. I'll put a link to it up on Twitter in a moment. It was a graphic novel. So this didn't quite fit into the parameters we set out for the conference, but it was such an amazing piece of science communication that we thought it had to be mentioned. And then finally, this year, we're really happy. We got an anonymous donation of $2,000 to provide a travel honorarium to one presenter who focused on either Antarctica or penguins. And this prize went to Catherine Cavallo for her presentation on DNA and penguin poop. And so she's going to have an honorarium to go to an in-person conference later this year to share her research.
Excellent.
And that's something we hope to have a lot more of in the future. We're contacting Audubon and other types of societies that might be willing to kick us a few dollars, because as great as a Twitter conference is, there's no substitute for face-to-face conversations. So we want to provide ways for either early career scientists or scientists from developing nations to have more funds to get to these in-person conferences.
Awesome. Thanks,
incredible. Max. Yay. Congratulations, everyone.
Yes, congratulations to, and once again, that's Liz Morgan, Rachel Orban, Juliet Lamb of Project Pelican, and Catherine Cavallo.
Yeah, even though Project Pelican's presentation didn't necessarily fit in the parameters, we need to expand how we think about science communication, especially for science with seabirds, simply because we're leading the way in many ways with these Twitter conferences. So let's just keep evolving, you know? So I appreciate it. And anytime you can put science in like a cartoon format, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So I appreciate
Speaking
that.
of leading the way, I wanted to mention a couple other Twitter conferences. So Corey, you mentioned that we're leading the way. I think the Royal Society of Chemistry was also an early adopter of the Twitter conference. They went a slightly different route where they're doing more of a poster style. But in addition, I wanted to mention a couple other Twitter conferences that have either happened recently or are upcoming. Of particular interest to seabirders was the Phillip Island Twitter conference, which was, if you saw our keynote for Asia/Australasia with Andre Sciardia, he hosted a Twitter conference specifically for Phillip Island. BioTweeps, if you're familiar with BioTweeps, which is the science communication Twitter account, is going to be holding a SciComm Twitter conference as well. And there's going to be a neurology one, the Brain Twitter conference, and Shu's seen word of an archaeology Twitter conference as well. And then Saskia and I were also contacted by the Society for Conservation Biology, so they've expressed interest as well. So this is a growing phenomenon, and we're hopefully going to see a lot more of these in the future.
Very cool. Yeah. So speaking of the future, World Seabird Twitter Conference 4. Can you tell us a little bit about the planning for that or anything in the works?
Yeah, so right now we're in the process of selecting our next chair. We're figuring out all the details on that, and we're also going to choose our future chair. So hopefully in the next week or so, I'll be able to announce either Saskia or myself will take on the role as the past chair, and then we're hoping to have a current committee member take the roles next year's current chair, and we'll have the future chair after that. I don't have any cool location to announce other than it's online. But one of the things we learned from last year is you can't wait until the same year to approach people for funding because funds get allocated really far ahead of time. So starting last week, we started reaching out to organizations for more potential funding. We're basically a zero cost organization. I think we spent $60 on getting some Twitter metrics at one point, but that was about it. Yep. So when we seek funding, it is really to pass on to our presenters and try to fund, as I mentioned before, either travel or we're hoping to also get some grants to do, like small research grants in the order of $500 to $1,000 to maybe pay for those 1 or 2 extra GPS units in a study that might make a difference.
Great. And if people are interested in volunteering or, excuse me, maybe even donating, where can they find out more information?
Yes, volunteering. Thank you, Laura. I should have mentioned that. If you are interested in joining the committee, we would really love to have you. I will put up a solicitation on Twitter a little bit later about that. But if you search for the WSTC3 hashtag, you'll get a lot of people. Saskia and myself will show up, Shu and Corey and Laura as well. Contact any of us. We're a fairly close-knit bunch at this point, having worked on this project together. So if you're interested in joining, we're trying to break it up into regions and have kind of these regional subcommittees, and we need people from all over the world. So if you're from, especially if you're from South America or from Asia or from parts of Africa that are not necessarily Cape Town, we are really trying to grow our presence in those parts of the world and highlight the really amazing research that goes on there. So yes, please join us.
Great. That's all the questions I have. Does anyone else have any more questions?
Yeah, one just came in from Twitter, but it's again from Stephanie. She asked, can you share a thread with all the Twitter conferences that are upcoming and their hashtags for or links? And that's something I'll make sure to put up somewhere so that people can follow what's going on.
I think, you know, an important part of the Twitter conference that you guys do, and you may not realize this, but a lot of the board members for the World Seabird Union may not actually be on Twitter, and they're a little bit on the older side. And so continuing to have links that people can follow the Twitter conference, even if they're not on Twitter specifically, that's really helpful. And so it allows, I know for a fact that some of our board members who do not have Twitter accounts, don't tweet, we're able to follow along because of those links. So that's a really important thing to keep going.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit nervous about staying committed to a single social media platform. Who knows what the future of Twitter is going to look like. So it'd be great if in the future we could diversify, figure out some way we can mirror across, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is, and just kind of diversify our portfolio some way. But I think that might be a couple of years off still. But in any case, thanks for mentioning that, Pat. Like making sure that this is accessible to everyone, whether or not they have a Twitter account, should be an important goal for us.
Totally. Thank you very much, Max and Pat and Laura, for telling us more about the World Seabird Twitter conferences and especially how they relate to WSU. And we love hearing that we are appreciated by the board members, and that the board members and people all around are hearing about our research. That's probably the coolest part of the conference. So thank you very much. So I think we've reached the end of our agenda, which means that it is time to announce the, at least location, I believe, of the next World Seabird Conference. This is so exciting. I've been waiting to hear this. I don't even know what it is. I'm so
excited. Really? Okay.
Yes.
Secret then. So let me just tell you a little bit about the process. I'll just do a bit of a tease, and then we'll get to the unveiling. So we thought we had a really good system figured out for how to do this, and we had a good system, but it could have been better. And so when we hosted the second World Seabird Conference, we put out a call for bids. And we got a bid from the South African Seabird Group. That was the only bid we got. So clearly it was an awesome bid. No, those guys did a great job. But we didn't have to really make a choice. They put together a very nice package, a really good bid. We were excited to move from a Pacific venue, a North Hemisphere Pacific venue, to a Southern Hemisphere venue that bordered the Atlantic and the Indian. And so one of the things that came out of the second World Seabird Conference was an idea of trying to move between ocean basins and also between hemispheres as best we could. So we kept that in mind as we put out a bid for host for the third World Seabird Conference. And we actually got 2 bids, which we didn't expect. And in the process of that, we realized we needed to do a better job of standardizing the request for the bids. And so the bidders have already been notified. I did email the bidders, and the board has been notified since they were the ones who voted. But this process probably took at least half a year to sort of sort through between when we put, from when we originally put the call out for bids. We received the bids the bids were due back in the middle of January. And so from the middle of January until really just the end of last week, we were kind of going through the 2 bid packages and trying to figure out, which option might be best for us, looking at costs, looking at things like, airline flights to both of the locations, who the supporting organizations were and all those other things. So they both did a really nice job. So the 2 bidders were a group out of Portugal who proposed meeting on Madeira Island, and the Australasian Seabird Group that proposed meeting in Hobart, Australia. And so that's where we're going. We're going to Hobart, Australia. So they both organizations did a really nice job. Both the bids were very competitive and had a lot of interest from the board members. But at the end of the day, the Australasian Seabird Group won the day and got the bid. So sometime in probably between September and November 2020, we will be hopefully all off to Hobart. Nicholas Carlisle and Peter Don were the 2 folks who took the lead on that bid. I know they had other people working on it as well, but they were sort of the 2 leaders. A couple reasons, I can tell you a couple reasons why they ended up getting the nod. Again, both bids were really good, and we were really excited to have 2 bids. But when we came out of the second World Seabird Conference, we had a post-conference survey. Some of you may have filled that out. And New Zealand, Australia was the top location that people were interested in meeting at for the third World Seabird Conference. It also gave us an opportunity to sort of, again, go to a different ocean basin. And the Australasian Seabird Group has been involved and engaged with the World Seabird Conference from day one. They played a role in getting the first World Seabird Conference up and running. They were a strong supporting organization then, played a big role moving us forward towards the second World Seabird Conference. Nicholas Carlisle currently sits as the vice chair of the World Seabird Union. And so for those reasons and a few others, they were the winning bid. So we were really excited. We'll go ahead and, you're all welcome to tweet it and put it out wherever you want to put it out. I'll go ahead and tweet as soon as we're done. And like I said, the board members already know, but we're really excited that we'll hold the board call here in a month or so. And it will take all of the next, 3 years to get this figured out, to be quite honest. It's a really big process. And the first thing that we'll end up doing, really, is starting to build a fundraising committee, because as Max said, it's never too soon to start looking for money. And one of the biggest things that we do in fundraising are look for funds to support travel funds for students. We realize that some students, no matter the location that we pick, it's going to be hard for somebody to get there. That's just the nature of the organization. But we also know that depending on where we choose to meet, we get a big local support group as well, and a big local contingency that shows up. So when we were in South Africa, we had way more South African students showing up there. But we had a lot of money that we were able to put into travel. And so we were able to bring students in from all over the world through the travel funds. And, we have a lot of work to do, but hopefully we'll be able to do that again. That's the plan. So that's what we'll be working on. So there's a lot of opportunities to do work to help get the third World Seabird Conference up and running. We'll be looking for committee members to host or to sit on, the science committee, the local host committee, the early career scientist committee, the communications committee, and there's a few others that get thrown in there as well. And so anybody who's listening or sees a tweet about it and has an interest, please reach out to me or anyone, any of the board members in the World Seabird Union or member societies, and let them know that you're interested, and we'll find some work for you to do. So hopefully I'll see you guys online, but I hope to see a lot of people in 2020 in Hobart as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pat. That is an incredible location.
Yeah.
That's going to be so much fun.
Again, I mean, I really can't, I can't thank the two organizations enough. The society in Portugal, SPEA, S-P-E-A, and the Australasian Seabird Group for putting together really good bids, for letting us go back at them 3 or 4 times for follow-up questions, which I know were getting annoying, and, but they hung in there and gave us 2 really good options. And so we have some things to consider on how we do this moving forward. But I think for the next few years, we're excited to be thinking about Hobart. Clearly it's a center of diversity for seabirds in the world, and so for that reason alone, it's also a really nice choice. And so I think those guys will put on a great show.
Totally. Thank you so much. So unless anyone else has anything to add, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up today's Seabird Chat. Thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you back online on Twitter too with #SeabirdChat, #Seabirder Saturday. Don't forget to check out #WSTC3 in case you haven't seen all of the presentations from the World Seabird Twitter conference. And yeah, have a wonderful day.
Thanks everybody.
Bye y'all.
Thanks for joining.